Vincent Harrington hadn't knelt on cold pavement in 30 years, but the city's morning chill bit through his threadbare coat as he watched his daughter's fiancé approach from across the street, unaware he was being tested by the man who could destroy his future with a single word. Welcome to our channel. I drop new videos like this weekly, so subscribe and turn on notifications to keep up. Meanwhile, before we commence with our beautiful story for today, can you kindly let us know where you are watching from in the comments section? Now back to our story. The November rain had turned the downtown intersection into a mirror of gray skies and hurried reflections. Vincent Harrington sat with his back against the brick wall of a closed pawnshop, a paper cup positioned between his bent knees, his face hidden beneath a hood that smelled of mothballs and regret. He'd purchased the costume from a theatrical supply company 3 days ago. The irony wasn't lost on him. A man worth $2.3 billion wearing clothes designed to look authentically poor. His hands trembled, though not from cold. Grief did that. Made your body betray you at inconvenient moments. 18 months since Catherine died, and he still woke reaching for her side of the bed, still turned to tell her things before remembering the silence that had replaced her laugh. Their daughter, Isadora, was all he had left. Beautiful, brilliant Isadora with her mother's compassion and his stubborn streak. She'd be married in 6 weeks to a man Vincent had met exactly twice. Polite dinners where the boy said all the right things, smiled at all the right moments, and never once revealed who he actually was beneath the performance. "I love him, Daddy," Isadora had said last month, her eyes bright with certainty. "Kai is different. He's kind." Kind. Vincent had learned that kindness was often the costume people wore until they got what they wanted. He'd built an empire by understanding human nature's transactional core. Everyone wanted something. The question was whether Kai's something was his daughter or his fortune. A businessman passed, sidestepping Vincent without breaking stride. Then a woman with grocery bags. A teenager on a skateboard. Invisible. That's what poverty made you. A ghost people looked through rather than at. Vincent had chosen this corner carefully. Kai worked at an architecture firm 4 blocks north, walked this route every morning to his favorite coffee shop. Vincent had his schedule memorized, knew his routines like a detective studying a suspect. Across the city, Kai-chan stood in his studio apartment's bathroom, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. The fabric was silk, too expensive for someone making his salary, but Isadora's father would notice these things. Would judge. The tie was an investment in appearing worthy, though the price tag made his stomach clench when he remembered his mother's apartment with its leaking ceiling and the medical bills stacked on her kitchen counter. He studied his reflection. 29 years old, first-generation American, Columbia graduate drowning in student debt while designing buildings for other people's dreams. His own apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up in Queens, the kind of place Isadora had never set foot in because he'd made excuses every time she'd suggested visiting. Shame was a weight he carried in his chest, right beside his love for her. She was light itself, generous, curious, utterly unaware that marrying him meant marrying down in her father's eyes. Vincent Harrington had made his assessment clear through what he didn't say, through the way his gaze lingered on Kai's off-the-rack suit, the way he asked pointed questions about family background and future earning potential. Kai grabbed his portfolio bag and headed out, descending the stairs with practiced speed. The November morning bit at his face as he emerged onto the street. He'd walked to the office today instead of taking the subway, needed time to think. The wedding planning had become another arena where he felt inadequate, every venue and caterer another reminder that Isadora's world operated on a frequency he was still learning to hear. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Did you tell her family yet about your father?" He deleted it without responding. Some truths were better left buried. His father's gambling debts, the eviction when Kai was 12, the way they'd lived in their car for 3 months. These stories didn't belong in the Harrington universe of charity galas and summer homes in the Hamptons. The coffee shop appeared ahead, its warm light promising refuge. But something made Kai slow his pace. A figure slumped against a building across the street, barely visible in the morning shadow. Most people wouldn't notice, would keep walking with their eyes trained on their destination. But Kai's mother had taught him different. "We see the invisible," she'd said 100 times during his childhood, pressing coins into homeless hands, stopping to ask names, to listen. "That's how we keep our souls." He crossed the street, his heart already knowing what his mind was still deciding. Vincent watched him come. The test was beginning. Kai's shoes, polished leather, probably the nicest pair he owned, stopped 2 feet from Vincent's cup. Close enough that Vincent could see the scuff marks someone had tried to buff out, the slight separation where the sole was beginning to detach. Expensive shoes worn past their prime. A man trying to look more successful than he was. "Morning," Kai said, his voice softer than Vincent expected. Vincent kept his head down, let his shoulders curl inward. He'd practiced this posture in his penthouse bathroom mirror, studied how defeat reshapes a body. "Morning," he rasped back, making his voice rough with phantom cigarettes and hard living. Kai crouched, bringing himself to eye level. Most people dropped money from a standing position, maintaining the physical hierarchy. But this boy folded himself down, made himself vulnerable on the same plane. "I'm Kai," he said, extending his hand. Vincent stared at it. Clean fingernails, a callus on the ring finger from holding pens, no wedding band yet. The hand hung in the space between them, an offering. Slowly, Vincent reached out, let their palms meet. Kai's grip was firm, warm, real. "Vincent," he said, using his actual name because somewhere in his planning he'd forgotten to invent a false one. "Vincent," Kai repeated, like the name mattered. "You eaten today?" The question landed differently than expected. Not "do you need money," or "can I help," but a simple inquiry about the basic human need for food, asked as if Vincent's answer actually mattered. "Not yet," Vincent heard himself say truthfully. He'd been too nervous to eat breakfast. His stomach knotted with the strangeness of this deception. Kai nodded, thinking. His eyes, dark brown, direct, scanned Vincent's face with an attention that felt uncomfortable. Catherine used to look at people like that, really seeing them. Isadora had inherited the trait. "The diner on 5th opens at 6, Kai said. "They do a breakfast special. Eggs, toast, coffee. $5. "I could," he paused, and something vulnerable crossed his features. A calculation happening behind his eyes, the kind Vincent recognized from 1,000 business negotiations. The math of what someone could afford. "I don't have much cash on me," Kai continued, his voice carrying an edge of embarrassment. "But I've got $7. Would you let me buy you breakfast? I'd join you if that's okay. I could use the company before work." The offer hung between them, and Vincent felt something crack in his chest. Not a test answer, a genuine invitation. Kai wasn't offering charity from a distance. He was proposing to sit across a table, to share space and time, to treat Vincent's company as something worth having. "You don't have to," Vincent said, testing further. "I know how people look at guys like me." Kai's expression shifted, a flash of pain so quick Vincent almost missed it. "Yeah," Kai said quietly. "I know something about being looked at the wrong way." The words carried weight, history. Vincent studied him closer now, seeing past the nice tie and careful grooming. Kai's coat was wool but had been mended at the elbow, the stitching slightly visible. His bag was quality leather but worn at the corners, probably second-hand. These were the choices of someone who understood scarcity, who made things last because replacing them wasn't simple. "The diner sounds good," Vincent said, meaning it. Kai's smile transformed his face, genuine relief mixed with something else. Gratitude maybe, as if Vincent had given him something instead of the other way around. They stood together, and Kai steadied Vincent's elbow without making a show of it. Just a touch to ensure balance, the kind of instinctive care that couldn't be faked. The walk to the diner took 4 minutes. Kai didn't fill the silence with nervous chatter or performative questions. He matched Vincent's pace, slower than his usual stride, and pointed out small things: a bird's nest tucked in a traffic light, a mural being painted on a warehouse wall. Observations meant to connect, to create a shared experience out of the ordinary morning. The diner was half empty, smelling of coffee and bacon grease. Kai chose a booth in the back, sliding into the side that faced the door. Vincent took the opposite seat, noting how Kai positioned himself to be more visible, giving Vincent the more sheltered position. Another small thing. Another choice that revealed character. A waitress appeared, older woman with tired eyes and a practiced smile. "What can I get you boys?" 2 breakfast specials, Kai said. And could we get extra toast? Thank you. She nodded, already moving away. You come here often? Vincent asked. Few times a month, Kai admitted. Usually when I need to think. My apartment's not, he stopped himself. It's small. Sometimes I need somewhere else to be. Where do you work? Architecture firm. Mitchell & Associates. I'm a junior designer, mostly work on residential projects. Kai's hands moved as he talked, sketching invisible buildings in the air. Not glamorous stuff. Renovations, additions. But I love it. Getting to reimagine how people live in their spaces, making something beautiful that actually serves them. There was passion there, authentic excitement. Vincent had sat through enough board meetings to recognize when someone loved their work versus when they tolerated it for a paycheck. You good at it? Vincent asked. Kai's smile turned self-deprecating. I'm okay. Still learning. My boss says I think too much about what the client needs and not enough about what looks impressive in our portfolio. He laughed softly. Probably why I'm not making partner anytime soon. The food arrived. Plates of scrambled eggs, hash browns, wheat toast slathered in butter. Kai pushed the extra toast toward Vincent without comment, just slid it across like it had always been meant for him. They ate in comfortable silence for a minute. Then Kai said, Can I ask you something, Vincent? Sure. How long have you been out here? On the streets, I mean. The question was direct but not invasive, asked with the tone of someone who genuinely wanted to understand rather than satisfy curiosity. Vincent set his fork down, staring at his plate. He'd prepared a backstory, a whole fictional history. But sitting across from this earnest young man who'd given up his coffee money to buy breakfast for a stranger, the lies felt heavier than the truth. Not long, Vincent said carefully. Lost some things. Made some mistakes. Ended up here. Kai nodded slowly. My family lost everything when I was a kid, he said, voice low. My father had a gambling problem. We were evicted, lived in our car for a while. My mom worked 3 jobs to get us into a studio apartment. He looked up, meeting Vincent's eyes. I remember what it felt like to be invisible. To walk past people and see them look through you like you're not even human. The confession settled between them, intimate and raw. Kai wasn't just sharing information, he was offering his own shame as a bridge, creating solidarity through vulnerability. Vincent's throat tightened. This was the information he'd wanted, the background check his private investigator had hinted at but couldn't fully confirm. Kai came from nothing, from the kind of poverty that left scars. But instead of feeling vindicated in his suspicions, Vincent felt something else entirely. Respect. Because Kai had clawed his way up from nothing and still stopped to crouch down for a beggar on a street corner. Still remembered what it meant to be seen. Your family okay now? Vincent asked. My mom is, Kai said. My father left when I was 15. Haven't seen him since. But mom's good. Strong. She taught me that your circumstances don't define your character. That who you are shows up in how you treat people when there's nothing in it for you. The words hit like a verdict. Vincent looked down at his plate, at the food bought with money Kai probably needed for lunch, shared by a man who had every reason to walk past and save himself $7. She sounds like a good woman, Vincent said quietly. The best, Kai agreed. Then he checked his watch and winced. I've got to head to work soon. But Vincent, he pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. This is my cell number. If you need anything, or just want to grab coffee sometime, call me. Okay? I mean it. He left a $10 bill on the table for the check, even though the food only cost $9, and stood. I'm really glad I met you, he said, and the sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Vincent watched him leave, the business card in his hand, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. The test was over. But now Vincent had a different problem entirely. He'd found exactly what he was afraid of finding, not a fortune hunter, but a good man. The kind of man who deserved his daughter. The kind of man who reminded Vincent painfully of who he used to be, before wealth built walls around his heart. Vincent sat in the diner booth for 20 minutes after Kai left, staring at the business card like it might bite him. The waitress refilled his coffee twice without asking, her kindness extended by proximity to Kai's generosity. Even strangers responded to goodness, Vincent thought. It left residue. He pulled out his phone, the burner he'd bought for this charade, and stared at Kai's handwritten number. The penmanship was careful, architect precise. Below the digits, Kai had written, "Seriously, any time." K. Vincent pocketed the card and left, walking 3 blocks before hailing a cab. He couldn't risk being seen near his office building dressed like this. The driver's eyes found him in the rearview mirror, suspicious and assessing, but money was money. Vincent gave an address 2 blocks from his penthouse. By noon, he was back in his world. Tailored Tom Ford suit, corner office with views of Central Park, mahogany desk that cost more than most people's cars. His assistant, Margaret, had stacked the morning's contracts in order of urgency. A normal Tuesday, except Vincent couldn't focus on a single word. He kept seeing Kai's face across that diner table. The vulnerability when he'd shared his history. The absence of shame when he'd admitted he didn't have much cash. Most people in Kai's position, courting a billionaire's daughter, would have hidden their poverty like a crime. Would have borrowed money they didn't have to appear more successful, more worthy. But Kai had been honest. Had chosen breakfast for a homeless man over coffee for himself. Vincent's intercom buzzed. "Mr. Harrington, your daughter is here." His chest tightened. "Send her in." Isadora entered like sunlight, all momentum and warmth. 26 years old, and she still moved through the world with her mother's fearless grace. She wore jeans and a cashmere sweater, her dark hair pulled back, no makeup. She'd never understood the performance that most people in their social circle considered mandatory. "Hi, Daddy." She kissed his cheek, then perched on the edge of his desk like she'd done since childhood. "You look weird. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. You're doing the thing with your jaw. The clenching thing." She studied him with those 2 observant eyes. "Is this about the wedding? Because if you're going to give me another lecture about prenups..." "It's not about prenups." Though they did need to discuss that. His lawyers had been pestering him for weeks. Then what? Vincent stood, walked to the window. Manhattan sprawled below, all steel and ambition. He'd conquered this city, built an empire from nothing, and yet a simple breakfast with his daughter's fiancé had undone something in him. "Tell me about Kai," he said. Isadora's expression shifted, cautious hope mixing with familiar defensiveness. "What do you want to know?" "How you met. What you love about him. The truth, Isadora. Not the version you think I want to hear." She was quiet for a moment, then slid off the desk and joined him at the window. "We met at a gallery opening," she said softly. "One of those terrible charity things you always make me attend. I was hiding in a corner, counting the minutes until I could leave, and he was there sketching the room in a notebook." Vincent waited. "I asked what he was drawing, and he showed me. He'd reimagined the entire space, knocked out walls, added light, turned it into something beautiful. He said that's what he did when he was bored at fancy parties. Redesigned them in his head." She smiled at the memory. "We talked for 3 hours. He didn't know who I was, didn't care about the Harrington name. He just saw me." "And when he found out?" "He was terrified," Isadora admitted. "Almost broke up with me. Said he couldn't give me the life I deserved, that your world and his world were too different." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I told him I didn't want his money, Daddy. I wanted his kindness. His integrity. The way he treats waiters and doormen and strangers like they matter. The way he loved his mother even after everything they went through." Vincent felt the words like accusations. When was the last time he'd learned a doorman's name? When had he stopped seeing the people who served him as human beings with stories? "You think I don't see that about him?" Vincent asked. "I think you see his bank account," Isadora said quietly. "I think you've decided he's marrying me for money, and nothing I say will change your mind." The truth of it stung. She was right. He'd made his judgment before meeting Kai, had let his cynicism write the story before any facts appeared. "What if I'm just trying to protect you?" Vincent said. "From what?" "From being loved." Isadora's eyes filled. "Mom wouldn't have done this. She would have seen what I see. She would have invited him to family dinners and asked about his day and made him feel like he belonged. But you look at him like he's a threat." Catherine's name hung between them, painful and potent. Vincent turned away from his daughter, gripping the window frame. "Your mother had better instincts than me," he said finally. "No," Isadora said. "She just wasn't afraid of being wrong about people. She gave them chances. She believed in goodness." A pause. "She would have liked Kai, Daddy. A lot." After Isadora left, Vincent sat at his desk and pulled out the business card again. He should throw it away, end this deception before it went further. He'd gotten his answer. Kai was genuine. The test was over. But something nagged at him, the ease with which Kai had shared his past, the careful way he'd revealed just enough to create connection but perhaps not everything. Vincent had built his fortune on reading people, on seeing the angles others missed. What if Kai's authenticity was its own performance? What if the breakfast was exactly what it appeared to be, a good deed, but the man doing it was still calculating odds, playing a longer game? Vincent had learned the hard way that the most dangerous deceptions were wrapped in truth. Across the city, Kai sat in his cubicle, pretending to review blueprints while his mind replayed the morning. The man's face haunted him, weathered and sad, but something else underneath. Intelligence. A sharpness in his eyes that didn't match the slumped posture and threadbare clothes. Kai had met enough people in crisis to recognize different types of homelessness. Some people were broken by it, ground down until nothing sharp remained. Others were displaced temporarily, still carrying the patterns of their former lives like ghost limbs. Vincent fell into the second category. The way he'd held his fork, the vocabulary he used, even his posture when he forgot to slouch, all suggested someone recently fallen rather than chronically struggling. It made Kai's heart ache. To have everything and lose it. To become invisible overnight. His phone buzzed. A text from Isadora. "Dinner tonight? My place? Miss you." Guilt twisted his stomach. He'd been distracted all week, caught up in wedding stress and his own insecurities. Isadora deserved better. Deserved someone who didn't constantly question whether he was enough. He texted back, "Can't wait. I love you." The words were true, but they felt inadequate. How did you tell someone that loving them terrified you? That every interaction with their father confirmed your deepest fear, that you were an imposter in their world, playing at belonging, waiting for the inevitable moment when everyone realized you didn't fit? The beggar's face surfaced in his mind again. Vincent. Something about the encounter had rattled loose a memory from childhood. His father, before the gambling consumed him, taking Kai to volunteer at a soup kitchen. "We're all closer to the edge than we think," his father had said. "Remember that. Stay humble." The irony was savage. His father had fallen right off that edge, dragged the family with him. Kai pulled out his wallet and looked at the photo tucked behind his credit card. His mother at her citizenship ceremony, beaming in a cheap dress she'd saved 6 months to buy. She'd worked herself to exhaustion to give him opportunities. Columbia had been her dream as much as his. And now he was marrying into wealth that would have seemed fictional to her younger self. Wealth that came with scrutiny, judgment, expectations he wasn't sure he could meet. His desk phone rang. Mitchell, his boss, summoning him to a meeting about the Riverside project. Kai forced his mind back to work, to the immediate demands of his actual life. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this morning had meant something. That meeting Vincent wasn't random coincidence, but some kind of test, though whether he was testing himself or being tested by forces he didn't understand, Kai couldn't say. What he knew for certain, he'd call that number. Would check on Vincent again. Because that's what decent people did. They followed up. They cared. Even if caring complicated everything else. 3 days passed before Vincent returned to the corner, and he told himself it was for thoroughness. One breakfast didn't prove character. He needed more data, more observation. That's what he told himself as he pulled on the threadbare coat again, as he positioned himself against the same brick wall at dawn. The truth he wouldn't admit, he wanted to see if Kai would come back. Most people performed goodness once and felt absolved. They bought a meal, dropped coins in a cup, and carried that single act like a certificate of virtue for months. But consistency, that was the real measure. Whether someone showed up again when there was no novelty, no emotional high, just the mundane choice to care. The morning was colder, November asserting itself with aggressive wind that cut through Vincent's coat. He shivered authentically now, no performance required. Around him, the city woke up in its usual rush, suited professionals with coffee, construction workers heading to sites, students with headphones blocking out the world. Invisible again. Even after 3 days, the sensation unsettled him. He'd spent decades being the most important person in any room, and now he couldn't get eye contact from passing strangers. 7:15. Kai's usual time. Vincent's heart rate picked up, ridiculous and unwelcome. He felt like a teenager waiting to see if his call would be returned. 7:20. Maybe Kai had changed his route. Maybe the breakfast had been enough, his conscience satisfied, the homeless man already forgotten. 7:23. Vincent was about to give up when he saw him, Kai rounding the corner with that careful stride, portfolio bag over his shoulder. But this time he wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him. Not Isadora. Vincent would recognize his daughter from any distance. This woman was older, maybe late 50s, wearing a nurse's scrubs under a practical winter coat. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she moved with the economical grace of someone used to long shifts on her feet. Kai's mother. Had to be. Vincent could see the resemblance in their gestures, the way they both tilted their heads when listening. They were speaking in Mandarin, their voices rising and falling in a language Vincent didn't understand. But he understood tone, body language. The conversation was tense. Kai's mother kept gesturing at him emphatically, and Kai kept shaking his head, his expression pained. They stopped 20 feet from Vincent's corner, their discussion intensifying. Kai said something sharp, and his mother responded with what sounded like a question that landed like a challenge. Then her eyes swept the street and landed on Vincent. She saw him. Really saw him in that way his own mother used to see people, with attention that conveyed you mattered, you existed, you were human. She said something to Kai, pointing at Vincent. Kai turned, and his face transformed. Surprise, then genuine pleasure. He said something to his mother, and they both approached. Vincent, Kai said, crouching down to eye level again. Hey. I've been hoping I'd run into you. Are you okay? You look cold. Vincent nodded, pulling the coat tighter. I'm all right. Managing. Kai's mother stepped forward, studying Vincent with a medical professional's assessing gaze. She spoke to Kai in Mandarin, her tone brisk and concerned. Kai responded, gesturing at Vincent, explaining something. My mother wants to know if you've eaten, Kai translated. And if you have somewhere warm to sleep. Tell her I appreciate the concern, Vincent said. I get by. Kai translated. His mother's expression tightened with disapproval, not at Vincent, but at the situation. She spoke again, more forcefully this time, and Kai sighed. She's insisting we take you to breakfast, Kai said. And she won't take no for an answer. Trust me, I know from experience. When mom decides to help someone, resistance is futile. His mother smiled at that, understanding the English word. She extended her hand to Vincent. May, she said, pointing to herself. Kai's mama. Vincent took her hand. Her grip was strong, calloused from years of work. Vincent, he said. Nice to meet you. Come, she said in accented but clear English. We eat. You too cold here. Kai waited while Vincent checked in, looking around the space with an architect's assessing eye. They could do more with this layout, he murmured. Better flow, more privacy partitions. Natural light would help. He wasn't criticizing, just imagining improvements, unable to turn off that part of his brain that saw potential in broken spaces. You do this often? Vincent asked. Help random people you meet on the street? Kai shrugged, uncomfortable with the question. Not often enough. Mom does more. She treats homeless patients at the hospital and actually remembers their names, follows up on them. Makes sure they're taking medication, eating properly. Half her salary probably goes to people who need it more than her. He smiled, but sadness edged it. She's a better person than I'll ever be. I doubt that, Vincent said. They stood in the shelter's fluorescent-lit lobby, both aware Kai was now seriously late for work. But Kai seemed reluctant to leave, as if abandoning Vincent here constituted some kind of failure. I should give you my mother's number too, Kai said, pulling out his phone. In case anything happens, or you need medical help. She'd want you to have it. He scribbled another number on a scrap of paper. Seriously, Vincent. Call if you need anything. Why are you doing this? Vincent asked. The question came out sharper than intended. Kai looked up, startled. What do you mean? You don't know me. I could be anyone. Dangerous, lying, using you. Vincent's voice carried an edge now, frustration bleeding through. Why trust a stranger? Kai was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. You want the real answer? Yes. Because I remember what it felt like to be disposable, Kai said softly. When my family lost everything, when we were living in our car, people looked through us like we were ghosts. Except for a few people who stopped. Who asked if we needed food, water, help. Those people saved us, Vincent. Not with money or solutions, but by reminding us we were still human, still visible, still worth caring about. He met Vincent's eyes. So I guess I'm trying to pay that forward. Even if it's inadequate. Even if it doesn't fix anything. The honesty was brutal and beautiful. Vincent felt his throat tighten. Your father, Vincent said carefully. The gambling. You said he left when you were 15. Kai's expression shuddered slightly. Yeah. Do you blame him? The question seemed to surprise Kai. He leaned against the intake desk, thinking. I used to. Was angry for years. But Mom helped me understand that addiction is a disease, that he was sick, that leaving was probably the kindest thing he could have done for us in his state. Kai's jaw tightened. Doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Doesn't mean I don't sometimes wonder if I inherited that weakness, that capacity for self-destruction. Is that why you worry about being good enough? Vincent asked. For your fiancé? Kai's head snapped up, and for a moment Vincent thought he'd pushed too far. But then Kai laughed, a short, bitter sound. That obvious, huh? Little bit. Her father is Vincent Harrington, Kai said, and Vincent's heart stopped. You know that name? I've heard it, Vincent managed. Billionaire. Self-made, brilliant, terrifying. He looks at me like I'm something he scraped off his shoe. Kai's voice cracked slightly. And maybe he's right. Maybe I am using her, trying to escape my origins, trying to become someone I'm not. Maybe every good thing I do is just performance, trying to prove I deserve to be in her world. Or maybe you're just a decent person who happens to love someone, Vincent said quietly. How do you know the difference? Kai asked. How do you know if your motives are pure or if you're just good at lying to yourself? The question hung between them, and Vincent realized Kai was asking for absolution Vincent had no right to give. Because Vincent had orchestrated this entire deception to answer that exact question, and now he was more confused than when he started. I don't think truly selfish people ask themselves that question, Vincent said finally. I think they just take what they want and justify it afterward. Kai nodded slowly, seeming to turn this over in his mind. He checked his phone and winced. I really have to go. My boss is going to murder me. He gripped Vincent's shoulder. You'll be here tonight? You'll stay somewhere safe. I'll be here, Vincent promised. After Kai left, Vincent stood in the shelter lobby for a long moment, then walked to the bank of payphones near the bathroom. He dialed his assistant on the burner phone. Margaret, it's me. Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need you to pull everything we have on Kai-chan. Every detail. Employment history, financial records, family background, medical records if you can get them. I want to know everything. Sir, we already ran a background check. I want deeper. I want to understand him. Vincent paused. And get me the contact information for Mei Chun, his mother. But don't approach her. Just the information. He hung up and sat heavily on one of the plastic chairs bolted to the floor. Around him, the shelter's residents moved through their morning routines, some heading out to day labor jobs, others settling into the common room with newspapers and coffee. Lives lived in the margins, one crisis away from complete dissolution. Vincent had walked past these people for decades, had written checks to homeless charities and felt virtuous. But he'd never actually seen them, never understood the specific architecture of desperation that brought someone to a place like this. His phone buzzed. A text from Isadora. Dinner tomorrow night? Me, you, and Kai? Please, Daddy. I want us to be a family. Vincent stared at the message. Tomorrow night he'd have to sit across from Kai at some restaurant, play the skeptical father, ask probing questions designed to expose weakness. He'd have to pretend he didn't know about the breakfast, the shelter, May's fierce protection of her son. He'd have to lie to everyone, including himself, about what he'd discovered. His phone buzzed again. Margaret, sir, something came up in the deeper dive. Kai's father, Leong Chun, didn't just leave. He committed suicide 3 years ago. Found in a motel room in Atlantic City. Kai flew down to identify the body. Paid for the cremation himself. His mother doesn't know the full details. He's been protecting her from the truth. Vincent's hands started shaking. He read the message 3 more times, letting the implications settle. Kai had been carrying this alone. The father who abandoned them had died in shame and isolation, and Kai had shouldered that grief privately, had paid final respects to a man who destroyed their family, had kept the painful truth from his mother to spare her additional heartbreak. Another text from Margaret. There's more. Kai took out a personal loan 2 months ago. $50,000. Payments are stretching him thin. I can't trace where the money went, but it wasn't for wedding expenses. Vincent's investigative instincts kicked in. $50,000. Where did it go? Was this the angle he'd been looking for? The proof that Kai needed money, that he was financially desperate enough to marry for wealth? But even as the thought formed, Vincent rejected it. He'd seen Kai choose breakfast for a stranger over coffee for himself. Had watched him arrive late to work multiple times to help someone he owed nothing to. Had heard the genuine anguish in his voice when he questioned his own worthiness. This wasn't a con. This was something else. Vincent called Margaret back. The $50,000. Dig deeper. I need to know where it went. It might take a few days, sir. The trail is deliberately obscured. Then take a few days. But find out. Vincent hung up and closed his eyes. The shelter smelled like industrial cleaner and resignation. Someone's radio played softly in the distance, a Spanish station mixing with the hum of fluorescent lights. He thought about Kai's question. How do you know if your motives are pure or if you're just good at lying to yourself? Vincent had spent the last week lying to everyone. Had disguised himself, deceived his daughter's fiancé, manipulated situations to expose truth. He'd told himself it was protection, parental duty, necessary caution. But maybe it was just fear. Fear that someone could genuinely love his daughter. Fear that he'd become so cynical that goodness looked like performance. Fear that he'd lost the capacity Catherine had, to trust, to believe, to see the best in people until they proved otherwise. A memory surfaced. Catherine on their first date, insisting they stop to help a stranded motorist even though they were late for their reservation. Vincent had been annoyed, impatient. But she'd knelt in her good dress to help change a tire, had gotten grease on her hands and laughed about it. We're all just people, she'd said in the car afterward, wiping her hands on his expensive handkerchief. Nobody's above needing help. Nobody's below deserving it. He'd fallen in love with her that night. Not despite that moment, but because of it. And now her daughter had found someone with that same instinct. That same inability to walk past suffering. That same stubborn belief in showing up. Vincent pulled out his phone and looked at the photo he'd taken at their last family dinner. Isadora midlaugh, radiant, alive. Catherine's daughter. Catherine's legacy. What would Catherine do? She'd invite Kai to family dinners. She'd ask about his day. She'd make him feel like he belonged. She wouldn't hire investigators or dress as a beggar or test people's worth. Vincent stood up, his decision crystallizing. He'd end this. Tomorrow night at dinner, he'd be the father Isadora needed. He'd welcome Kai, support their marriage, let go of his suspicions. But first, he needed to understand the $50,000. Not to condemn, but to know. Because whatever Kai was hiding, it mattered. And Vincent couldn't fully embrace him without understanding all of him. The truth, he was learning, was more complicated than tests and performances. It required actual vulnerability, actual trust. Things Vincent had forgotten how to offer. Vincent spent the rest of the day at the shelter, partly because leaving would break character, partly because he was exhausted by his own deception. He napped on the narrow cot assigned to him, surrounded by the sounds of other men's breathing, their coughs, their nightmares expressed in restless movement. When he woke at 4, Margaret had sent him an address. No explanation, just coordinates in Queens. The place where Kai's $50,000 had gone. Vincent changed back into his regular clothes in a coffee shop bathroom 3 blocks away, emerging as himself again, tailored suit, polished shoes, the armor of wealth. He took a car service to the address in Queens. The building was a modest assisted living facility called Harmony Gardens, its brick facade cheerful with flower boxes despite the November cold. Inside, the lobby smelled like cafeteria food and antiseptic. A receptionist looked up as Vincent entered. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for information about a resident here," Vincent said carefully. "I'm conducting a background check for business purposes. Very confidential." The receptionist's expression cooled. "We don't give out resident information." Vincent pulled out his wallet, then stopped. Money wouldn't work here. These people protected their residents fiercely. He tried a different approach. "I'm trying to help someone," he said honestly. "A young man who's important to my family. I think he's paying for someone's care here, and I need to understand why. Not to hurt him, but to help him." The receptionist studied him, weighing truth against protocol. Finally, she said, "There's a woman in the common room. Mei Chun. She comes every evening to sit with one of our residents. Maybe talk to her." Vincent's heart stuttered. May was here. Of course she was. He found her in a sunroom at the back of the building, sitting beside a hospital bed that had been wheeled in from one of the rooms. The woman in the bed was elderly, Asian, her body frail beneath white blankets. Tubes ran from her arms to an 4 stand. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. May held the woman's hand, speaking softly in Mandarin. She looked up as Vincent approached, and her expression cycled through surprise, confusion, then something like understanding. "Vincent," she said, standing. She didn't seem shocked to see him clean, well-dressed, clearly not homeless. "You look different." "I can explain." "My son," May interrupted. "He help you. Give you food, walk you to shelter. He tell me about you last night at dinner." Her eyes narrowed. "But you not homeless, I think. You test him." There was no point lying. Vincent nodded slowly. May was quiet for a moment, her face unreadable. Then she gestured to the woman in the bed. "This is Lynn. My best friend. We worked together 30 years at hospital. She get sick 2 years ago. Alzheimer's, then stroke. She need care, but she have no money, no family. Medicare not cover this place. Nice place. Safe. Clean." Vincent looked at the woman, Lynn, her face peaceful in unconsciousness. "Kai pay," May said simply. "Every month. $2,000. He take loan, work extra, never complain. I tell him no, I pay, but he say Lynn is family. He say she give me extra shifts when I need money, help us when we have nothing. He say this is how we pay back." Her voice cracked. He do this even though he struggle. Even though he save for wedding, worry about money. He do this because it right thing. The 50,000. A down payment on Lynn's care, ensuring months of security. Not selfishness. Not desperation. Just quiet, private generosity that Kai never intended anyone to know about. Vincent felt something break open in his chest. Does Isadora know? He asked quietly. No one know except me. Kai say don't tell. Say it not about recognition. May stepped closer, and despite being nearly a foot shorter than Vincent, her presence felt enormous. So now you know. My son is good man. Not because he have money. Not because he from right family. Because he understand what matter. She paused. You test him because you scared. You lose wife, you scared lose daughter too. I understand. But you looking for wrong thing. You looking for money, education, status. You should look for heart. Tears burned Vincent's eyes. I know that now. Do you? May challenged. Or you just feel guilty? She gestured to Lynn. Good heart is every day. Is when no one watching. Is when it cost you something. Your daughter find this. You should celebrate, not test. Vincent looked at Lynn again, this small woman whose care had cost Kai his financial security, his peace of mind, potentially his ability to give Isadora the wedding she deserved. And Kai had done it anyway, without hesitation, without announcing it to the world. I've been a fool, Vincent whispered. Yes, May agreed. But fool can learn. Question is, will you? They stood in silence for a moment. Then May said, You come tomorrow night for dinner? You, your daughter, my Kai. I cook. Real food, not restaurant fake fancy. We talk, all of us. No more testing. No more pretending. Just family. May, I don't think. I not asking, May said firmly. I telling. We do this right. You want to know my son? Then know him. Real him. With his mother, in his world. Then you decide if he good enough for your daughter. Vincent found himself nodding, overwhelmed by this small fierce woman who had raised a son capable of such quiet goodness. Thank you, he said, for telling me about Lynn. For letting me see. I not do for you, May said. I do for Kai. He deserve father-in-law who see him true. Not test version. True version. She sat back down beside Lynn, dismissing him. Tomorrow. 6 o'clock. I text your daughter address. Vincent left the facility in a daze. In the car back to Manhattan, he called Margaret. Cancel the investigation, he said. All of it. Delete everything. Sir. I have what I need. And Margaret? Make a donation to Harmony Gardens. Anonymous. 500,000. Enough to cover Lynn's care for as long as she needs it, and to upgrade their facilities. Right away, sir. Vincent hung up and stared out at the city passing by. Somewhere in Queens, Kai was probably leaving his office, exhausted from a long day, worried about being late for the shelter volunteer shift he'd probably signed up for. Worried about money. About being worthy. About all the things that didn't actually matter. Catherine's voice echoed in his memory. We're all just people. Nobody's above needing help. Nobody's below deserving it. Kai understood that. Had learned it from his mother, from his own experience of falling. And instead of becoming bitter or cynical, he'd become more generous. More attentive to suffering. More willing to sacrifice. That's who Isadora had chosen. Not despite his poverty or his past, but maybe because of what those things had taught him about what actually mattered. Vincent pulled out his phone and texted his daughter, dinner tomorrow night. 6 o'clock. May Chen's apartment. Tell Kai I'm looking forward to really getting to know him. Isadora's response came immediately, Daddy. Really? What changed? Vincent stared at the question. What had changed? Everything. Nothing. He just finally started seeing what was already there. I'm trying to be more like your mother, he typed back. to believe in goodness, to give people chances. She would love that, Isadora responded. She would love Kai too. I know she would. I know, Vincent wrote. I'm starting to see why you do. That night, Vincent stood in his penthouse looking at the photo on his desk, Catherine at their wedding, radiant in white, her hand in his. He'd been so young then, so certain that hard work and intelligence were all that mattered. She'd taught him different. Had shown him that success without compassion was just expensive loneliness. He'd forgotten that lesson after she died. Had retreated into his suspicions and his walls and his need to control everything. But Kai had reminded him. This struggling architect with his second-hand bag and his mended coat and his fierce capacity to care. This young man who worked himself to exhaustion to pay for a stranger's nursing home care because it was the right thing to do. This man who loved his daughter. Vincent picked up his phone and did something impulsive. He called Kai's number, the one from the business card. Kai answered on the third ring, wary. Hello. Kai, it's Vincent Harrington. Silence. Then, carefully, Mr. Harrington. Is everything okay? Is Isadora? She's fine. I just wanted to say, Vincent paused, choosing his words. I'm looking forward to dinner tomorrow. To getting to know you better. Really know you, not just the performance we all do at formal dinners. More silence. Then Kai said quietly, I'd like that too, sir. Call me Vincent, Vincent said. Please. Vincent, Kai repeated, and something in his voice suggested he was smiling. Thank you. That means a lot. They said goodnight, and Vincent hung up, feeling lighter than he had in months. Tomorrow would be complicated, explaining the deception, facing everyone's reactions, figuring out how to move forward. But tonight, Vincent felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. The possibility that his daughter would be happy, that he could be part of that happiness instead of an obstacle to it, that family could expand to include this good man and his fierce mother. That he could learn to see people the way Catherine had, clearly, hopefully, with faith in their capacity for goodness. It was a start. Act 7, The Shatter Point. Mei Chen's apartment was a third-floor walk-up in Flushing, the kind of building where cooking smells mingled in the hallway and you could hear 3 different languages spoken through the walls. Vincent climbed the stairs behind Isadora, his heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to fear. I can't believe you agreed to this, Isadora said over her shoulder, her voice bright with hope. Kai was shocked when I told him. In a good way. Vincent didn't respond. He was carrying flowers for May and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The wealth disparity suddenly felt obscene. Isadora knocked, and Kai opened the door. He wore jeans and a simple button-down, his feet bare, his hair slightly damp from a shower. Behind him, the apartment was tiny but immaculate, a living room that flowed into a kitchen, framed photos covering every surface, the smell of ginger and soy sauce thick in the air. Vincent, Kai said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, but Vincent felt the slight tremor. Kai was nervous. Thank you for having me, Vincent said, meaning it. May appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. She looked at Vincent with those sharp, assessing eyes, then smiled. You come. Good. Sit. Dinner almost ready. The apartment was crowded with the 4 of them. They ate at a small table that barely fit, plates passed hand to hand, elbows bumping. May had cooked enough food for 10 people, dumplings, braised pork belly, stir-fried vegetables, soup that steamed in a clay pot. Mom always overcooks when she's nervous, Kai said, smiling at her. I'm not nervous, May protested. I just want enough food. There's enough food for an army, Isadora laughed. The conversation started carefully, polite questions about work, wedding plans, safe topics. But May kept steering toward more personal territory, asking Vincent about Catherine, about his childhood, about what he loved about his work. Vincent found himself answering honestly, the wine and May's directness dismantling his usual guards. He talked about growing up poor in Philadelphia, about his first business failure, about meeting Catherine at a charity event where he'd been hired as catering staff. So you're not always rich, May observed. No, Vincent admitted. I worked my way up. Started with nothing. Then you understand, May said. You understand what it cost. What it take. She looked at Kai meaningfully. The dinner progressed, warmth building despite the cramped quarters. Isadora told stories about their engagement, about Kai's proposal in Central Park during a snowstorm. Kai talked about his work, his dreams of designing affordable housing, buildings that served communities instead of just showcasing architectural ego. Vincent watched him talk, watched the passion animate his face, and felt the last of his resistance crumble. This was real. This was good. Then May's phone rang. She answered in Mandarin, her expression shifting from cheerful to concerned. She stood, moving into the small bedroom and closing the door. Through the thin walls, they could hear her voice rising, urgent and worried. Kai's face went pale. That's the facility, he murmured. Something's wrong with Lynn. May emerged minutes later, her face drawn. She spoke to Kai in rapid Mandarin, and Vincent watched his color drain further. What's wrong? Isadora asked. A friend, Kai said tightly. She's sick. Mom needs to go to her. I come too, May said, already untying her apron. No, Mom. Stay with Isadora and Vincent. I'll go. I'll call you when I know more. Kai was already grabbing his coat. Kai, May started. I'll handle it, Kai said firmly. He kissed his mother's cheek, squeezed Isadora's hand. I'm sorry. I'll be back as soon as I can. He left before anyone could protest, the door closing with finality. The apartment felt larger and quieter without him. May sank into her chair, worry etching lines around her eyes. Is she going to be okay? Isadora asked. Lynn, I mean. May looked at Vincent, and he saw the question in her eyes. Should she tell? Did Isadora know? I don't know, May said carefully. She very sick. Kai help with her care. Help how? Isadora asked. The moment stretched. Vincent felt it coming, the revelation that would change everything, and he wanted to stop it, to protect Kai's privacy. But truth had its own momentum. He pay for her nursing home, May said quietly. Every month. $2,000. He take loan to cover first year. He never tell you because he think you worry about money, think he marry you for wrong reason. Isadora went very still. What? Lynn is my friend from hospital, May continued. She have no one. Kai say she family, say we take care of family. So he pay. Her voice cracked. Even though he struggle. Even though he worry all the time about being good enough for you. He still pay. Isadora's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't he tell me? Because he ashamed, May said simply. Ashamed he not rich like your father. Ashamed he can't give you everything. He think if you know he have debt, if you know he barely survive each month, you change mind about him. Isadora turned to Vincent, her expression shifting from shock to something darker. Did you know about this? Vincent's mouth went dry. This was the moment. The choice between continuing the deception or telling the truth. Yes, he said quietly. I found out yesterday. How? Isadora's voice was sharp now, suspicious. Vincent looked at May, seeking permission. She nodded slightly, her expression sad. I've been investigating Kai, Vincent admitted. Having him followed, checking his finances, his background. I wanted to make sure he wasn't marrying you for money. The words landed like grenades. Isadora stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. You what? Isadora. You had him investigated? You followed him. Her voice rose, tears spilling now. What else did you do, Daddy? Bug his apartment? Interrogate his friends? I was trying to protect you. No, Isadora said, her voice breaking. You were trying to control me. To prove you were right about him. To confirm your cynical worldview where everyone is just using everyone else. She grabbed her coat. Does Kai know? Does he know you've been spying on him? Vincent's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God," Isadora whispered. "He's been so nervous around you, trying so hard to prove himself, and the whole time you've been treating him like a criminal." She turned to May. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for my father." "Isadora, wait." Vincent stood, reaching for her. She jerked away. "Don't. Just don't." Her eyes were red, devastated. "Mom would be so disappointed in you. So ashamed. You've become exactly the kind of man she hated, the kind who thinks money makes you better, who thinks everyone without it is suspect." "That's not true. Isn't it?" Isadora challenged. "You couldn't just trust my judgment. Couldn't just believe that maybe I found someone good. You had to test him, investigate him, prove he was flawed. Well, congratulations, Daddy. You found out he's human. He has debt and struggles and pride. What a scandal." She moved toward the door, then turned back. "Kai is the best man I've ever met. He's kind and generous, and he loves me, actually loves me, not my bank account or my last name. And he's been killing himself trying to win your approval while you've been spying on him like he's some kind of con artist." "I know that now," Vincent said desperately. "I understand." "No, you don't," Isadora cut him off. "Because if you did, you would have trusted him. Trusted me. But you couldn't do that, could you? You're so terrified of being hurt again after Mom died that you've decided no one is trustworthy, no one is genuine. Well, I'm not living like that. I'm not marrying someone with my father's suspicion hanging over us like a curse." "What are you saying?" Vincent's voice came out hoarse. "I'm saying I need space from you. From your tests and your investigations and your inability to believe in anything good." Tears streamed down her face. "I love you, Daddy. But I can't have you at the wedding if you don't actually support this marriage. If you're just there judging, waiting for Kai to fail." "Isadora." But she was already leaving, the door slamming behind her with terrible finality. The apartment fell silent except for May's quiet crying. Vincent stood frozen, his daughter's words echoing in his ears. "Mom would be so disappointed in you. So ashamed." He knew it was true. Catherine would have hated what he'd become, cynical, suspicious, unable to trust. She would have embraced Kai immediately, would have seen his goodness without needing tests or investigations. And Vincent had destroyed everything trying to protect it. "I should go," he said to May, his voice hollow. May wiped her eyes and looked at him with something like pity. "You love your daughter. I see this. But love without trust is prison, not protection. You understand." Vincent nodded numbly. "Kai, he trust easy because he know what it feel like when no one trust you," May continued. "When people look at you and see only poor, only immigrant, only not good enough. He never want make someone feel that way. So he trust first, ask questions later. Sometimes this hurt him, but it also make him good man." "I know," Vincent whispered. "Then you need decide," May said firmly. "You keep being scared, keep testing, keep pushing away? Or you be brave like your daughter, like Kai, like your wife would want? You choose fear or you choose love. But you can't have both." Vincent left the apartment in a daze, May's words ringing in his ears. Outside, the November night was bitter cold, and he realized he'd left his coat inside. He couldn't go back for it. Couldn't face May's disappointed eyes again. He called his driver, waited on the street corner feeling more alone than he had in the beggar's costume. At least, then he'd been pretending. Now he was genuinely lost, genuinely isolated, having driven away the only family he had left. His phone buzzed. A text from Kai: "Lynn is stable. Close call, but she's okay. Tell Mom not to worry. I'll stay here tonight to make sure she's monitored properly." Vincent stared at the message. Even in crisis, even after the disaster of dinner, Kai was thinking of May's worry, making sure she had information. Taking care of people. Another text came through, this one from Isadora: "Don't contact me for a while. I need time to think about whether I can trust you anymore." Vincent read it 3 times, each word knife. He'd tested Kai and found him worthy. But in the process, he'd failed his own daughter's test. Had proven himself unworthy of her trust, her love, her forgiveness. The beggar costume had been easy to remove. But the cynicism, the suspicion, the fear that had motivated it, those were harder to shed. Those had become part of who he was, woven into his identity after Catherine's death. And now they'd cost him everything that mattered. Vincent sat alone in his penthouse, the city sprawling below him like a kingdom he no longer wanted. 3 days had passed since the dinner. 3 days of silence from Isadora. 3 days of replaying every mistake. His phone showed 12 missed calls to her, all unanswered. His texts sat unread, the blue checkmarks never appearing. She'd shut him out completely, and he deserved it. On his desk sat Catherine's journal, the one she'd kept during her illness. He'd never been able to read it before, too painful, too raw. But tonight, desperate for her wisdom, he opened it to a random page. Vincent is terrified of Isadora getting hurt, she'd written 6 months before she died. He's already building walls, already preparing to protect her from the world. But I won't be here to remind him that walls keep out love as much as pain. Someone needs to tell him, trust is the only real protection. Not money, not control. Just faith in people's goodness. Vincent's hands shook. Catherine had known. Had seen exactly who he'd become. He picked up his phone and called Kai. It rang 4 times before connecting. Mr. Harrington. Kai's voice was careful, neutral. I need to talk to you. In person. Please. A long pause. When? Now. I can come to you. I'm at the hospital. Visiting Lynn. Kai gave him the address and hung up. Vincent drove himself. No driver, no buffer. The hospital was in Queens, institutional and tired. He found Kai in the ICU waiting room, exhausted, wearing the same clothes from 3 days ago. She had another stroke, Kai said without preamble. Touch and go for a while, but she's stable now. Vincent sat beside him. The plastic chairs were uncomfortable, unforgiving. I owe you an apology, Vincent began. More than an apology. An explanation. I know why you did it, Kai said quietly. May told me. About the investigation, the background checks. I understand, you were protecting Isadora. No, Vincent interrupted. I was protecting myself. From having to trust again. From having to believe people could be good without ulterior motives. He met Kai's eyes. I dressed as a homeless man and tested you because I was too afraid to just trust my daughter's judgment. Kai's expression flickered, surprise, then something like understanding. That was you, he said slowly. Vincent. The man at the corner. Yes. And the breakfast, the shelter, you were testing me the whole time. Yes. And you passed every test. Showed me exactly who you are, generous, kind, selfless. Everything Isadora said you were. Vincent's voice cracked. But I still couldn't just accept it. Couldn't let it be simple. I had to keep investigating, keep looking for the flaw, the angle, the proof that no one is actually good. Kai leaned back, processing. That's exhausting. Living like that. It is, Vincent admitted. Catherine used to tell me that cynicism was just disappointment dressed up as wisdom. I didn't understand what she meant until now. They sat in silence, the hospital sounds filling the space, beeping monitors, hushed voices, the squeak of nurses' shoes. Lynn was my mother's only friend when we had nothing, Kai said finally. She'd bring us food, pay our electricity bill, pretend she was just being neighborly. But we knew. She was keeping us alive. He rubbed his face. When she got sick, when she had no one, how could I not help? It wasn't even a question. Isadora doesn't know about the loan, does she? The debt? No. I didn't want her to think I needed her money. Didn't want that shadow over us. Kai laughed bitterly. Turns out the shadow was there anyway. Your suspicion was enough. She's not speaking to me, Vincent said. Hasn't answered any of my calls. I know. She's staying at my apartment. Hasn't mentioned you once. The words hurt, but Vincent accepted them. I don't know how to fix this. Kai turned to him, and his eyes held unexpected compassion. You fix it by choosing differently. By deciding that trust is worth the risk. That believing in people, even when they might disappoint you, is better than the prison of constant suspicion. What if I can't? What if I've forgotten how? Then you practice, Kai said simply. You start small. You trust one person, then another. You let yourself be vulnerable, let yourself believe. He paused. You let yourself love without conditions. Vincent thought about the beggar costume, the elaborate deception, the investigation. All that effort to avoid the simple, terrifying act of trust. Will you forgive me? Vincent asked. I already have, Kai said. But the person you really need forgiveness from is your daughter. And yourself. The wedding was in 3 weeks. Vincent stood outside Kai's apartment building, the buzzer unanswered for the 5th time. He'd been coming every day for a week. Every day, silence. Today, he brought something different. The deed to Harmony Gardens, transferred to a trust in Lynn's name. Enough to cover her care for life, and to expand the facility to help others. He'd signed it that morning, thinking about Catherine's journal, about second chances. The door opened. Isadora stood there, her eyes red-rimmed, defiant. Daddy. Can I come up? Please. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Kai's apartment was tiny but filled with evidence of her presence. Her jacket on a chair, her shoes by the door, wedding magazines on the coffee table. They'd been planning their life together here, in this modest space, while Vincent had been alone in his mansion. I read Mom's journal, Vincent said, sitting on the couch without being invited. She knew I'd become this person, suspicious, controlling, afraid. She tried to warn me. Isadora sat across from him, guarded. She wrote that trust is the only real protection. That walls keep out love as much as pain. Vincent's voice broke. She was right. I've been so busy protecting you that I forgot to trust you. Trust your judgment, your choices, your love. Why did you do it? Isadora asked. The investigation, the deception, why? Because I was terrified, Vincent admitted. After your mother died, you were all I had left. The thought of losing you, of you being hurt, I couldn't bear it. So I tried to control everything, test everything, prove that the world was as dangerous as I feared. And Kai. Kai is everything you said he was. Kind, generous, good. He stops for strangers, pays for friends' care, treats people with dignity regardless of their circumstances. Vincent pulled out the deed. He reminds me of your mother. Of who I used to be before grief made me hard. Isadora took the deed, reading it. Her eyes filled. Daddy. It's not enough. I know that. But it's a start. Kai's been carrying Lynn's care alone, and he shouldn't have to. Neither should May. He'll refuse this, Isadora said. I know. That's why it's in Lynn's name. He can't refuse on her behalf. Vincent leaned forward. Isadora, I can't promise I won't still worry. Can't promise I won't sometimes slip back into old patterns. But I can promise to try. To trust. To believe that the man you love is worthy of that love, because you're my daughter, and you have your mother's instincts for goodness. Tears spilled down Isadora's cheeks. I missed you. I missed you too. So much. She moved to the couch, and Vincent wrapped his arms around her, holding his daughter like he had when she was small, when the world's problems could be solved with comfort and presence. Will you come to the wedding? She asked against his shoulder. Really be there, not just physically but actually supporting us? Yes. If Kai will still have me there. He will, Isadora said. He's already forgiven you. He told me so. Said you were just a father trying to protect his daughter, that he understood fear. Vincent thought about Kai in that hospital waiting room, exhausted but compassionate, offering wisdom about trust and practice and vulnerability. About choosing love over fear. He's better than I deserve as a son-in-law, Vincent said. He is, Isadora agreed, smiling through her tears. But he's what you get. So you'd better learn to accept it. The door opened and Kai entered, stopping when he saw them on the couch. His expression cycled through surprise, caution, then tentative hope. "Vincent," he said. "Kai." Vincent stood, extending his hand. "I know I've said sorry. But I want to say something else. Thank you. For loving my daughter. For showing me what that actually looks like, selfless, generous, without conditions. And for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it." Kai took his hand, then pulled him into a hug. "Welcome to the family," he said quietly. "The real one. Where we trust each other." Vincent held his future son-in-law, this good man who'd stopped for a beggar, who'd paid for a friend's care, who'd chosen vulnerability over pride. This man who would take care of his daughter, not because of her money or name, but because of who she was. "I promise to do better," Vincent whispered. "To be the father Catherine would want. The father-in-law you deserve." "Just be present," Kai said. "That's all we need." 3 weeks later, Vincent walked Isadora down the aisle with May beside them, a blend of traditions, of families coming together. When the officiant asked who gave this woman, Vincent said clearly, "Her mother and I, along with Kai's mother. We all do. Gladly." At the reception, Vincent toasted, "To my daughter and son-in-law. You've taught me that love requires courage, the courage to trust, to believe, to see the best in people even when it's risky. Thank you for not giving up on me. For showing me it's never too late to choose differently." Later, Kai found Vincent at the bar. "Lynn woke up yesterday. The new medication is working. She recognized May, asked about the wedding." "That's wonderful," Vincent said. "The trust you set up, she'll never know financial fear again. Neither will the other residents." Kai's voice was thick. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Vincent said. "Your generosity shouldn't cost you your future. And besides," he smiled, "family takes care of family. You taught me that." They stood together watching Isadora dance with May, two families woven together not by wealth or status, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to trust. Vincent thought of Catherine, wished she could see this. But maybe she could. Maybe she was here in Isadora's laugh, in Kai's kindness, in the second chances that grace allowed. He'd tested Kai and found him worthy. But more importantly, he'd tested himself and found room to grow, to change, to become the man his daughter needed, the father-in-law Kai deserved. It wasn't too late. It was never too late to choose love over fear. What's the bravest choice you've ever made in a relationship? To trust despite your fears. We'd love to hear your story. Share it below and let's celebrate courage together.